So Julia on the brown note on a blisteringly hot, humid day in Sydney, desperate to get to the end of this view and open the door again. And a review of the latest album by Squid called Cowards. Gone on at length about the whole incredible era of British indie guitar music, which fell off, seeming to die forever, and we've had a lot of talk about how festivals don't have bands anymore. They put Dua Lipa or Sabrina Carpenter or some garbage on at music festivals now, and bands don't exist. But yet there's been one of the most exciting eras in British indie guitar music in history, with this band Squid at its epicenter alongside Black Midi and Black Country New Road. And also, you know, Dry Cleaning, Wet Leg, Working Men's Club. It's been an incredible era, and it's been mainly music that's quite post-punk and spiky, rather than sort of anthemic or disco-y like the Franz Ferdinand era, or like, you know, like the Clash, or even back to the Oasis sort of era. Very different to that, very less commercial music. And why aren't these bands on festivals? Why have we got people with costume changes, augmented vocals and musical backing tracks on in live music festivals? There's horses for courses. You listen to some music in some environments and some in another. You don't go to a club to listen to Black Country New Road, and you don't go to a field to listen to Sabrina Carpenter do costume changes to a backing track and dance. So anyway, it's been a fertile era, and Black Midi have become defunct after 3 albums. Squid are on their 3rd album. They are Ollie Judge, who does the lyrics, which I've got a lot of them to go through because he writes very oblique lyrics. I love songs that are about the world, the universe around us, and not just introspection about how you feel. I don't even like romantic lyrics, to be honest. I love the fact that Squid write about the world. Black Midi did as well. Lewis Borlase, Arthur Ledbetter, Laurie Nankivel and Aaron Pearson are the 5-piece that are Squid. And given that the lead singer of Black Country New Road departed, we're still waiting for them to come back for that 3rd album. They are probably the last man standing of that trio, who are the godheads for me of that new wave of British indie guitar music. Their first album, Bright Green Field, was excellent. They've done 3 excellent albums, including this one. Featured a lot of yelping from Ollie, which isn't necessary all the time, and very long songs, like stretching out over 8 minutes. Reminded me a bit of Car Seat Headrest in the way they did that. Fantastic album, loved it. Oh Monolith, though, that came out 2 years later in 2023, I thought was a flat-out masterpiece. In the same way the last Black Midi album was a masterpiece. It was a fantastic consolidation of everything they could do well, but pushing the envelope, and very sort of politicised, socio-political lyrics as well. I'm going to keep tapping my screen because it will turn off. And they come back with their 3rd album, Cowards, and that's only been out for a couple of weeks, with a fetching cover. I think the cover is emblematic of the album because it features a scorpion about to sting someone. If there's one complaint I have about this album, I wish they pushed it harder and further like they did with Oh Monolith, I feel, and had that stinger going in. And they're on Warp Records, which is, you know, a normal electronic music titan, and I think might be the first. Were they the first guitar band on Warp? I can't remember. So the opening, Crispy Skin, he does very oblique lyrics. That's why I've got the lyrics out. It's got this one of their strongest ever tracks, and I feel like over the course of this album, the bass player and the drummer lock in more than I've heard on their previous releases to create these very, very arresting riffs and rolling progressions that reminded me of Modest Mouse. I feel like Modest Mouse, when they lost that bass player, I think it was a bass player that went, not the drummer, or the other way around, after the Moon and Antarctica sort of era, they really did lose something, because here it's just fantastic. It's very low key, but it's a very compelling drive on Crispy Skin, which is from a novel called Tender Flesh, about a society in the future where all animals have become contaminated, so cannibalism has been made legal. I couldn't eat another thing. No more pages of Crispy Skin. Am I the bad one? Yep, yes I am. Thought it couldn't change me? Well, here I am. Am I the bad one? Yes I am. A song about cannibalism to open. And there's a socio-political theme running through, which is not always so abstract. Sometimes it does touch down. The guitar as well is quite accentuating, so it doesn't sort of drive most of the tracks. It drops in like Johnny Greenwood style to accentuate the tracks, and the yelping of Ollie is more in the service of the songs on this album. I thought one of their best and perhaps most Radioheady songs or albums. There's a wonderfully noodly guitar riff for Building 650, and he goes back to that full yelping, but it's not as jarring as it was on the first album, which was quite sort of antisocial at times. And the lyrics on there: a flame could melt his nose and mouth, a flame could melt almost anything, a shopping mall, some kerosene, light the shoes, 'cause I've seen rarer things, like a murderer saying lovely things, a flame could melt his nose and mouth. Those plastic foods on the windowsill, there's no taste, just an empty gaze. Again, referencing a novel, The Miso Soup, this time by Ryu Murakami. Blood on the Boulders. All three opening songs are very strong. It's a ballad, but it's got these manic breakdowns to it, and opens with all the houses in this country are built like shit. Drywall, well, I could put my fist through it if I wanted to. I'm sure anyone in the UK knows exactly what that's about. And there's a two-track Fieldworks 1 and 2, which sort of bleed into each other and could have been one track. The first one is just mainly an intro to Fieldworks 2. All you bandits do is cry all night, bloodied faces, hear them whine, getting lost in between, twisted bones crash down onto the rocks, splayed open, I won't cry, getting lost in between who I was and what I am, there's no water in the lake. Probably two of the most low-key tracks on the album as well. And it gets back to more upright stuff with Cro-Magnon Man. I don't think I've got any lyrics from that one. Which reminded me of Tiny Cities Made of Ash, a classic Modest Mouse song from the Moon and Antarctica, which is again driven by this compelling combination of bass and drums, with the guitar dropping in rather than having chord changes drive the song. World away from Oasis here. The title track, Cowards, breaks out as this incredibly beautiful guitar-led pattern, long-form pattern almost, with horns being beautifully used. I really was surprised by, I don't normally read album reviews or watch them if I'm going to review an album, because I'd like to have my own thoughts out there, but the Needle Drop gave it a dismissive review. And one of the things he said was about how all over the shop it was. I think this is like incredibly cohesive and consistent musically. They don't put in a lot of the trappings of the modern era, which is to go on these wild experiments and chuck the kitchen sink in musically. It seems a very band-based album, and every track seems to use the same colour palette of instruments. I don't know what he's talking about. The lyrics there as well: polythene bags will never go away, us dogs and rats will never escape. If you said it could be better out, I probably won't believe you. I'll knock the teeth out of my head and we'll see all the things waiting for me beyond the castle walls, beyond the garage doors. I guess alluding to the fact of people being penned into their homes as though they're fortresses now. And then we get the only epic track, and I think their first album had a number of tracks which spiraled on past the 8-minute mark or 6.5-minute mark. And it's the last one, which is, did I do Showtime? Oh, I didn't do Showtime, track 8, which is another Modest Mouse-esque, really strong drum and bass vibe going on, and it's got a middle bit which is the only really avant-garde musical breakdown on the album that involves less straightforward instrumentation. And the coda on that track's magnificent. It's a really strong sort of final 4 tracks, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 tracks on the album is equally strong as the opening. And there's a couple, sort of fire. Maybe the fieldworks was a little bit middling compared. The coda on it's incandescent, and then it goes into this 8-minute track, Well Met, Fingers Through the Fence, which is superb. And again, they were one where they reminded me of Black Country New Road a bit, and the lyrics on that one as well reminded me of T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, which fits the band actually quite well. I see this great blur all around me, and it's always changing. From the back seat, just blues and reds, there's nothing else to see, there's nothing else to see. We're with the fishes, our skin is cracking, tombstones are rolling, circles enclosing, and we just play our songs to the sea and hope that nothing comes and washes us away through metal fences. My fingers rested, obliterated, I do nothing. A very apocalyptic end to the album. And Black Country New Road are much more, or were, with their previous lyricist and singer, very much about the self and how I feel. And Squid are much more about their reflected world, the world around them being reflected back at them, and I love that. And there's so few bands that do that. Even my favourite bands often just write songs about love and relationships, and I just don't really care. It's not really going well for me, is that, saying that? I thought this was another superb Squid album. Where it fits in the Squid albums, I would say it's joint equal with the first one. It's probably their most perfectly realised album, but like I said about the cover, on Oh Monolith they pushed it, and I feel like they could have pushed it more. I don't know what the Needle Drop is talking about in his review of this album at all. It's a very band instrument based album. Like, there's very little added to that bass, drum, guitar, vocal setup at all, and the keys only are here and there on the album, and occasionally a few tracks have a horn, and there's virtually no sort of extra instrumentation or different musical styles attempted. 44 minutes is another great album from Squid, who until the new Black Country New Road might be the reigning kings, given that Black Midi have gone their separate ways, maybe for a short time, who knows. I guess they lost their lead singer like Black Country New Road did. Maybe Ollie is the next one to go, but superb Squid album, 8.5 out of 10 for Coward.